Hey guys, welcome back to T-Bones Tech. In today's video, we are reviewing my new favorite lens, the Canon RF24-270 F2.8 IS USM lens. So if I could only choose one lens because of its versatility, it would most certainly be this, because you have a very wide range of 24 millimeters, which is pretty wide, all the way to 70 millimeters, which is great for portraiture. Also, it has the addition of IS, image stabilization, up to 5 stops, and that's something that the older EF variant of this lens didn't have. Image stabilization, of course, is crucial for shooting video, and the image stabilization on this lens is really impressive. So that put together really makes it a killer combination. So let's get into the specs of this lens. The first thing you notice when you pick up this lens is how big and heavy and substantial it is. It weighs in at 2 pounds, and that's actually a half a pound heavier than the Canon RF24 to 105mm f4L lens. And the front element is also substantially larger, coming in at 82 millimeters on the F2.8, and the 24-105 has a 77 millimeter filter size. Shooting this lens wide open at f2.8 gives us access to this absolutely beautiful circular looking bokeh. Even here in the bottom right of the frame, you can see it is still very circular. A lot of cheaper lenses are going to be more ovular here in the corners, but on this lens, it's nice and circular, and that's thanks to its 9-bladed aperture. So right now the lens is at f16. We're going to open it up all the way to f2.8 here, and we can see that nice beautiful nanogonal aperture, and it's really beautiful to see the lens slowly open like this. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this translates to our bokeh or our background blur, and here we are filming wide open at f2.8, zoomed in to 70 millimeters. Now let's go ahead and stop down our aperture from f2.8 all the way down to f16. And as we stopped down the aperture, we could see our bokeh getting smaller, but it was still very round and nice. Considering the footage that you're seeing right now was being shot at f16 is really incredible. On lower quality lenses, when we stop down our aperture, our background blur is going to get much sharper into the shape that the aperture is. And that can get very distracting and not very desirable. So with this lens, you're getting much smoother background blurs, which is really nice. Now, as far as build quality goes, this lens feels very solid in the hand. Moving all the dials feels really good as well. Canon is known for building very robust L lenses, and this one definitely doesn't disappoint. The lens features 3 aspherical elements and 3 UD elements to help it be sharp across the board. And we are really going to dive into lens sharpness and quality with some sample pictures later at the end of this video. It also features a sealed construction design, which gives it dust and weather resistance. And with that is a rubber gasket here where the lens mounts to the camera body for some extra water resistance. It also features a zoom ring lock here at the bottom of the lens to help prevent lens creep. Right now, the zoom ring is nice and tight when zooming, so when the lens is brand new, you really don't have to worry about lens creep, but I'm guessing as it gets older, you're going to experience more lens creep, so it's really nice to have a lock here to prevent it from zooming out by itself. Now, something that is missing is a physical focus distance indicator. With all of Canon's brand new RF lenses, they seem to drop those focus distance indicators, and the reason they dropped it is because you can't put a physical focus distance indicator on a lens when it is focused by wire. There are 3 different rings here. The first ring, of course, is our zoom ring, and then the second is our focus ring. And when I actually spin this right now, it's focused by wire, so when I spin it, it's not actually doing anything if the camera is powered off or if it's not connected to a camera at all. And the third ring here is our control ring, so we can actually change settings like the aperture, the ISO, or the shutter speed and some other settings with this ring. So that's really cool. Personally, I have it set to control the aperture, just like you used to be able to do with those old school manual lenses. This lens also features Canon's high-speed nano USM autofocusing system. It is extremely quiet and very snappy. And basically, as soon as I tap the screen to focus on a subject, it snaps into focus really quickly. The minimum focusing distance of this lens at 24 millimeters is 0.69 feet, and then the telephoto end of 70 millimeters, the minimum focusing distance is 1.25 feet. Now, as far as lens flare goes, I think it actually looks pretty decent on this lens. It's not very bold and very striking, so it's going to look pretty decent on video. And as far as photography goes, it's not going to really impact your photos all too much. But of course, if you do want to remove that lens flare, we can easily do so by putting on the included lens hood that Canon gives you for free with this lens. This lens has optical image stabilization built into it. That's up to 5 stops of shake correction. So right here you guys can see a sample photo from a stress test that I did with the image stabilization on versus off in low light. So this first photo, the image stabilizer was turned on. So let's go ahead and take a look at our settings here. This picture was shot at 70 millimeters handheld, and the shutter speed we're using is 1/40th of a second. Now that is a very low shutter speed to be using when zoomed out handheld in low light at 70 millimeters. But if we zoom in here, we can see our camera did a very good job at minimizing the shakiness of my hand when taking this photo. Now if we take a look here at the body, we can see it's blurry, and that's because it's actually out of focus. Not because the camera was shaky, but because it was out of focus because the aperture I was using was very shallow at f2.8. But over here where our focus was, it is very sharp, and this photo is definitely usable. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what this photo would look like with the image stabilizer turned off. So right after I took that first photo, I tried my best to be as still as possible, and I took the second photo, but I turned the image stabilizer off. And here we can see basically this photo is unusable. So if we zoom in here, we can see it's just very, very blurry. There's really nothing I could do here. I could try to sharpen the text to make it look potentially usable, but honestly, this photo is not usable. And again, 60 is also out of focus. Everything just looks terrible on this photo. So here's what it looks like with the image stabilizer off. Let me show you guys one last time with it on, and here we can see a huge difference. That's what up to 5 stops of image stabilization can do for you. Image stabilization can make a big difference for low light handheld photos, but it also makes a huge difference for video as well. Let's take a look at the sharpness of our lens. So we're gonna start off by zooming into this picture that was shot at f2.8, so wide open here. And this first photo here was shot wide at 24 millimeters. And here we can see there's very good detail here in the center. Let's stop down to f4. And here at f4, we can see a little bit more detail here on the brick in the center of the image. Stopping down to f5.6, again we can see I think a little bit more detail. It's probably sharpest here at f5.6. Stopping down to f8, I think we get a little bit worse. So here's f8, and then here is f5.6. I think here at f8 we lose a little bit of data right here. Again, this is in the center. And then if we stop down to f11, we're definitely losing some sharpness here. And then here at f16, again, we've definitely lost some sharpness here in the center of the frame. But now let's go ahead and take a look at the sharpness in the corner of the image here. So again, right now this is at wide open at f2.8, and we can see it's very soft right here on the edge of the brick. Let's stop down to f4, and here at f4 we can see a little bit more detail and things get a little bit sharper here. Let's stop down to f5.6, and here at f5.6, again, we can see a lot more detail here on the brick. This lens is definitely sharpest here at f5.6. Stopping down to f8, I think it actually might get a little bit sharper here in the corners. Everything just looks really nice and crisp. Now in this example, don't look over here on the screen near the window. Make sure you're looking at the brick, because I focused here on the bricks and all the bricks are on the same focal plane, where here on the screen back here, it's actually recessed about 6 inches, and that's why it's blurry here at f2.8. And the reason why I get sharper here at f8 is because f8 is going to give you a much deeper depth of field, putting more in focus. So let's stop down to f11. In here at f11, I think our image quality gets a little bit softer. And then here at f16, again, it definitely gets sharper. Look at the difference here between f11 and f16. Right here is f16, and then this is f11. When you shoot this lens at f16, you're definitely losing a lot of sharpness here in the corners of the photo and even in the centers of the photo. So these first photos were shot at 24 millimeters. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our photos taken at 70 millimeters. So again, let's zoom in here to the middle and check for sharpness, and everything looks pretty nice and decent here at 70 millimeters. We have good sharpness. Let's stop down to f4. In here at f4, we can definitely see we gain a little bit of data. Take a look at this brick right here. This is f4, and then this is f2.8. We're definitely gaining sharpness here at f4. Let's stop down one more stop to f5.6, and here at f5.6, I definitely think the center of the frame is getting sharper. Let's stop down one more stop to f8, and here at f8, it looks very similar. I think it looks maybe a little bit softer than f5.6. It's very hard to tell the difference. Again, this is f8, and then this is f5.6. I think f5.6 is a little bit sharper here. So now let's go ahead and stop down to f11. In here at f11, we can definitely tell it's getting softer. And then here at f16, it's definitely a lot softer than it was at f11 or even f8 or f5.6, which is the sharpest this lens gets. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the same photos, but we'll check the corners for sharpness. So let's zoom in here and check for sharpness. Again, we are at 70 millimeters at f2.8 here, and everything looks pretty decent, but a little bit softer here on the edges than it is in the middle of the frame. Let's stop down to f4, and here at f4, we're definitely gaining some detail. So again, here's f4, and then here is f5.6. Actually, it's hard to tell right now. At first, I thought f4 was sharper, but now I really can't tell the difference. So again, this is f4, and then this is f2.8. I think f4 is a little bit sharper, but this one's a little bit harder. Okay, so now let's stop down to f5.6 and see if it gets any sharper in the corners. Here we are at f5.6, and wow, that is a big difference between f4 and f5.6. Again, this is f4, and we can see it's pretty soft right here in the corners, and then this is f5.6. So let's stop down to f8, and here at f8, I think it actually gets a little bit sharper. So here's f5.6, and then here is f8. Both are very similar. It's hard to tell the difference between f5.6 and f8 for these photos. Now let's stop down to f11. In here at f11, I think it's a little bit softer, nothing too crazy. And then here at f16, again, definitely much softer here. So again, here's f16, and then here is f11. So to summarize my sharpness test, this lens is definitely very sharp across the board, but when you shoot it at f5.6, that's when you're going to get maximum sharpness and best image results. But overall, I'd say this lens is pretty sharp across the board, no matter what aperture you shoot it at. Well, that's about all I got for you guys in this video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to give me a big thumbs up down below. And of course, make sure to subscribe button, and then you'll be notified every single time I upload a brand new video just like this one to my YouTube channel. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.